Hello, ladies and Germans. In the past 4 or 5 months, a lot of people, and by a lot, I mean 200, 300 people, send us emails asking my opinion about what's going on this side of the world. Is there going to be a war? Is Russia going to invade Ukraine? What's going on here? But I've been busy with many different things. Finally, today, I had some meetings this afternoon that were cancelled by the people I was supposed to meet, and also by me, cancelled also. Anyway, tense days we live in. So today I decided to explain to you what's going on this side of the world, if there's going to be a war or not. Okay? Enjoy.
En nombre del Padre, del Hijo y del Espíritu Santo.
So let's talk about war. Is there going to be a war around here between Russia and Ukraine? Let me explain to you how these things work. Part of it. Number one, Russia has repeated many times they don't want to invade Ukraine. I'll get to the why later. But the Western media, the Western countries, and by Western countries I pretty much mean three of them: America and the two little Americas, which is Canada and the UK. America and the two little Americas, the bitches. Yeah, they keep on pushing it. There's going to be an invasion any moment now. Any moment. And they've been saying that for about 5 months. But no invasion happened. Nothing happened. But they just keep every day, the media, the Western media. And the Western media is controlled by the US, the UK, and Canada. And above those three countries, there's only a couple of people that control the entire media. If you live in a town of 5,000 people, not so much. But even then, the newspaper on your town of 5,000, if you go up the stairs, you'll see that belongs to a big company, eventually to one of those 2 or 3 guys. But in a small town, you can still get some things that are true journalism, which is to tell the news. And tell the news is like 5 things, like who, where, when, how, and whatever else. To keep you the facts. That used to be journalism, the facts. Now, forget about it. The media wars, like I've shown you 10 years ago, were lost 40 years ago. The media wars. I made a video or 2 about that, some 8-9 years ago, something like that. So now what you see on the news, on the media, it's not journalists. It's just the spokespersons, the journalists. This is the spokespersons to government interests. The governments now control the media. But by the way, not only in America and the 2 little Americas, or France and Germany, same thing. Also in Russia, what do you think? Oh yeah. Of course, there's always some, news agencies, small time, and this, that they have their own little independence for now, so they can say whatever they want. You know why they can say whatever they want? Because they don't matter. People listen to the CNNs and Fox News and Russia Today, all the big names. That's where they get their information. But that information is being passed to them from the government. There's no such thing as independent media anymore. So, having said that, and as you saw, I wasn't even defending Russia. Same thing everywhere. I serve the cause. I don't serve Russia. I serve the cause. So you put that in your head, okay? Anyway, so I feel free. I'm free to accuse left or right, up and down. I serve the cause. I don't serve countries. I don't serve presidents. I don't serve political parties or any kind of influence. I serve the cause. And by serving the cause, I mean I serve the goddess. And that's it. So I can say whatever I want. Maybe Dante is a little bit afraid of dying, but I'm not. Moving on. So people ask me, there's a war going on or not? No, all American presidents want a war. All American presidents start a war, and if they don't start one, they inherited one from the previous president, and they make it either bigger or more messed up. It's good business. Oh, it's huge business. Talk about trillions of dollars. Everyone wants a war, with all the ramifications that a war has: economical, political, geopolitical, worldwide. Every American president wants a war. If they don't have one, they come up with one. If they can come up with one, they come up with rumors of wars, like it's happening right now with Biden. Hopefully, still remembers his name. But it's good for business and geopolitical interests and economical. So everybody wants a war in the West. Sometimes in the East too. Remember, I don't serve anybody except the cause and the goddess. But talking about what's happening right now, is Russia spelling it for 5 months? We don't want to invade Ukraine. We will not invade Ukraine. Meanwhile, every day, many times a day, the Western media, Russia's invaded Ukraine anytime now, any minute. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google it. Like every day, any moment now, any minute. It's next week. It's on the 16th. It's on the 12th. Anyway, meanwhile, nothing is happening. In 5 months of Western media pushing this idea to the people in the Western world that an invasion is going to happen anytime. The Western and the Eastern world pushing this idea to people's minds that there'll be going to be a war between Russia and Ukraine. Russia to invade Ukraine any moment. That doesn't happen that day, in 2 or 3 days. Then it's there next month. Then it's like any second now. We see troops moving. Like anyway, so why they do this? Now I'm talking about the Western media, which is controlled by Western governments, America and the two little Americas, Canada and the UK, because they do want a war. They need a war. NATO, little by little, since the end of the so-called Cold War, has lost its purpose. But they don't want to lose their position. They lost the purpose, but they don't want to lose their position in any way, shape or form. And so we gotta keep an enemy. If it's not the Taliban, it's ISIS. It's not ISIS, it's Russia. It's not Russia, it's Martians. But you gotta have the fear, put the fear in people's minds that we're almost about to die, all of us. There's gonna be a huge war. Everybody's in fear. Yeah, I was gonna talk about something else concerning a certain disease, but I'm not going to. Otherwise the video gets blocked. So I'm not gonna talk about that disease. Yeah, I was talking about smallpox. Or diarrhea. Not what you're thinking of. Anyway, so gotta keep the fear, gotta keep all that pressure on the people. Always living in fear. Fear. You know what's the opposite of faith? The opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is fear. So keep fear on people's minds, so that the faith disappears. So they're strong. Yes. Doubt is okay, but the opposite of faith is fear. So don't be afraid. Moving on. You know, the Western media says Russia is going to invade Ukraine any moment. Let me explain something to you. Russia invading Ukraine, or Russia invading Belarus, or Belarus invading Ukraine, or Ukraine invading Russia, or Ukraine invading Belarus. It's almost, not totally, almost impossible. Why? Because Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians are the same. Historically, bloodline, family-wise, they're all the same. You cannot go from Russia to Ukraine to Belarus and all the way around without seeing family ties. Same thing. The lines you see on the maps of, the borders, they're just lines on a map. They're related. Russians, Ukrainians, Belarus, one people. You go from country to country, there's your cousin, there's your brother, there's your sister-in-law, there's your father-in-law, your mother and father, your brothers and sisters. They're one people. And it has always been like that. I could go on and on for a month talking about this. But something like that, there's no difference. At least these three countries, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, same people. You know, for Russia to invade Ukraine, or for Ukraine to invade Belarus, it's like, New York invading New Jersey. Okay. It's different place, same people. People in New York, family in New Jersey and vice versa. They're not just about to kill them over some, oil business. So You have to keep this in mind, because the Western media, controlled by the Western countries, they know this, that Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians are the same people, the same family. There's no difference. It's not like, Russians and South Africans, or South Africans and Peruvians, or Peruvians and Germans. There's a big difference, historically. But between Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, there's no difference. There's only the lines you see on the map But blood, families, friendships, relationships, it's one people. And I'm not going to go more into it, as the video gets blocked. Anyway, now, is there a possibility of a war right now? Yes, there is. A very strong one. Is there a possibility of Russia invading Ukraine? Yeah. Among many other possibilities. Many others. There's a possibility that Ukraine invades Russia, but nobody's talking about that. Ukraine invades Russian territory. Nobody's talking about that. That's not good for the Western media, the Western agenda. But why do you think America, Canada, Germany, the UK are sending weapons to Ukraine? So that they have and they're not only defensive weapons, but lethal weapons. So that if they want, and if they follow orders from America, they can even invade a part of Russia. With money, with political pressure, especially economical pressure, anything's possible. One president that looks like he's a nice guy today may not be so nice tomorrow. And the orders come from above, not even from the White House. Anyway, let's keep on going. Now, what kind of war would be fought? Let's say this example. It's one example. Let's say that Russia invades Ukraine. What kind of war would that be? Do you think it would be like a war between Russia and Chechnya, or the war in Libya, or in Syria, or anywhere else? No, because they are family. So, if, for example, Russia was to invade Ukraine, it would not be one of those wars where you have all these Russian guys going village to village, like Vietnam, killing everybody they see. No, because they'll be killing their own family, their relatives, their cousins, their brothers and sisters, their aunts and uncles. It'll be totally different. It'll be a precise war, hitting military targets. It would not be a war like Vietnam or Libya or Iraq or Chechnya, Afghanistan. No, it'll be totally different. Because if Russia was to invade Ukraine, they're not coming here like crazy maniacs shooting at every building and just to control the city. They'll just go street to street just to control the city. No, they'll be killing their own people, their own family. So it'll be a totally different kind of war. It'll be just precise targets being hit. So the Western media, they're selling this image that the Russians walk through Ukraine, killing everybody. There's going to be 50,000 deaths, like I've seen. I read it on CNN and many other Western media, that they'll come and suddenly there's going to be 5 million. I read this, and you can Google it, search for it. There'll be, if Russia invades Ukraine, there'll be 5 million refugees, like the people that have to escape their houses and move to Poland or somewhere else, escape to Israel. No, be totally different. It'll be specific targets, not troops going door to door, street to street. No. They'll be like knocking on, "Hey, uncle, are you there? Yeah, okay, I have to kill you." No, it'll be like that at all. Like I said, it'll be like you live in this apartment building and you cross the street to kill your mother across, on the apartment building across the street. No, it'll be totally different. It'll be not a war like you used to see wars. It'll be totally different. It's almost be like arriving with a gun. I said the Russian vids who can arrive with a gun. I said, "I'm sorry for being here." Pretty much. Only specific military targets and the media, of course, and a few other things, but do not be going randomly door to door and just killing everybody just to control a neighborhood. No, cuckoo. That's crazy. Okay, it will be a totally different kind of war. I wouldn't even call it a war. I'll call it like a specific target being hit. Anyway, so can it happen? Yes. Everything is in place, but not only for Russia to invade Ukraine, it's also in place for Ukraine to invade Russian territory. That's why US and the two little Americas, Canada and UK, are giving so many lethal weapons to Ukraine so that they get emboldened. Plus, there's all the pressures behind the curtain for them to make a move. And then to pressure Russia to attack. This is all a war that Russia doesn't want, Ukraine doesn't want, Belarus doesn't want, the West wants. The West wants this war to happen. Because that, oh, mamma mia. Can you imagine the ramifications? And I'm talking about sanctions. Forget about sanctions. The military ramifications. They'll find an excuse to bring NATO into it. And then there will be a war. Then there will be a war. They're trying to cause a war between Russia and Ukraine, which Ukrainians don't want, Russia doesn't want. But the West want this war to happen, because then they'll give an excuse, and they'll find one. They'll find excuses for anything. Remember Powell? Oh, here's the chemical weapons that Saddam Hussein has by the millions. There was no chemical weapons. There was no biological weapons. Excuses. Remember Powell back in the early 2000s? Yeah, that's what they're doing now with this threatening of wars. Be wise, think, read the news, but then take a while to think about it. The West wants this war to happen. Over here, nobody wants the war. Who wants war? Nobody wants war. Especially here, they're all relatives. Belarusians, Ukrainians, Russians, they're relatives. You cannot cross borders and not find your cousin, your brother, your sister, your mother, your friend. Impossible. The West wants to divide these countries into little pieces so that then they can move on. So they're trying to force a war that nobody wants here, but it can happen. It can happen. There's a lot of things happening behind the curtains. When Biden calls Putin or Putin calls Biden, and you see on the news, on the phone, that's what the media wants to show you, that they're still talking, but behind the curtains, nobody's talking. No, nobody's talking. It's over. The talk is over. Now there's only this invisible war, psychological war and economical war, but it's not diplomatic war. That's over. Diplomatic war or contacts, it's over. Now it's only up to one of the parts not to allow themselves to get involved. one of the parts, because there's one part that wants to get involved, and you know what I'm talking about. The other part doesn't want, but it's possible, because you got Russia, Belarus, Ukraine. If you get, for example, Ukraine, get bold enough to get it, start something, then for every action there's a reaction, and then yeah, there'll be a war among family. But even then, no family members will be in the streets killing their relatives. No, it'll still be a war of specific targets. But you know, don't quote me. Wasn't I the one telling you 10 years ago or 12 years ago about the 2017-2022 period that the world would change completely? Look at the world now. Hasn't it changed completely? No levels. When I said that 2017-2022, when I said that 12 years ago, 13 years ago, everybody was calling me crazy. But hey, look at the world now with, you know, how do you feel about your freedoms? And I don't want to say the name, but you know what I'm talking about. For example, everything's changed, among other things. Anyway, so can it happen? Yeah, in a few minutes. Or hopefully it will not happen. Hopefully we'll once again pass this period. This period is the 2017-2022 period, but there were other periods before, many. Let's call them 2017-2022 periods, even though we're not during this period. But there were others, and we survived. This is the last push from the other side, to cause the end of all. Because, you know, the 2017-2022 period is almost over. So this is the last push. Let's do it now, so that there's going to be worldwide war spread, you know, and with that, change everything upside down into their favor. Some people are trying not to happen. Others are pushing it so that it happens before the end of 2022. Because if it does not happen by the end of this year, the next, let's call 2017-2022 period will only come in about 8 years. Remember this, because I'll be here in 8 years. After the 2022 will be 2030. That will be the 2030-2035 period, which will be like this one, but even worse. But in between, many things can happen. Okay, so now you know what's happening here. Be safe, be wise, be smart. Cheers, have a good week.
Si un hombre no puede elegir entre el bien y el mal, es libre.
Es un pueblo tranquilo. Aquí nunca pasa nada.
Usted es el capitán de los ejércitos del Señor. Está aquí para luchar contra las huestes del demonio. ¿Qué es esto?
Lei cosa sa delle 30 monete?
Cuando Judas traicionó a Cristo, los romanos le dieron 30 monedas. Y ahora alguien las está buscando.
Quien reúna las 30 monedas tendrá en su poder un arma más poderosa que el mismo arca de la alianza. No podemos permitir que caigan en sus manos.
Unos se salvarán y otros no.
Lo contrario de la fe no es la duda, es el miedo. Y no hay que tenerle miedo al miedo.
Be safe, be wise, be smart. Cheers. Have a good week.